Welcome to Watching the Throne, Episode 1 on the Late Night Chat Network. All right. Welcome, everybody, to Watching the Throne, Episode 1. Me and JT once again here doing another show for you guys. We'll see how this one goes. So if any of you guys have seen any of the various reviews me and JT have done here, Late Night at the Movies, is more of our deep dive conversation that we do, old films that we've seen most of the time. Sometimes we've both seen it. Sometimes it's new to some of us. And that's the interesting thing about this. JT had brought up the fact that you recently just watched House of the Dragon, the spin-off show that's actually a prequel to Game of Thrones for the first time this past year. And it just ended a couple of weeks back. And Jay had told me how much he enjoyed that, but he had never seen Game of Thrones, which I was very well aware of after telling him how good of a show it was over the years, right? So what about that, Jay?
Oh, we'll see. We'll see what happens, man. It's got me watching so far, so we'll see what happens and how it goes from here. But yeah, I don't know. You're probably gonna have a lot of haters that are gonna be fucking saying stuff because I've never watched this, and I'm only doing it because I'm a whore for content, so.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We both are, I guess, in that sense. But I feel like this was a fun idea in the sense that knowing that you have never seen it and us talking about trying to do something in terms of watching a show and talking about it. This seemed like the perfect opportunity because while this could be, it's equally fun possibly for the both of us because for me, I've never rewatched the show since I've originally watched it. So this probably aired 8-9 years ago or something like that. I didn't even look at the date of this when it came out. Did you look at the date of this season 1 when it aired?
No, I didn't actually.
I'll look it up. Actually, if you can look it up there, yeah. You can look it up quickly. And but yeah, so I haven't seen this really since it first came out. I think I was late to the party. I probably seen it before the first season ended. I didn't see it right out the gate, but I think that once I heard how popular the show was, I definitely went and checked it out. And even for me, it was a bit of a hard sell because you really got to stick with it through this first season. So already, I think the nice part about this, Jay, for you watching it the first time is that you do have some context for some of the characters, although they're not characters that are present in this show. At least you kind of get the way the world is somewhat already. So if you had interest in House of the Dragon, I certainly think you're going to enjoy this show because it is very similar in certain ways, right? So but you got to remember House of the Dragon is obviously hundreds of years before Game of Thrones takes place, right? So I think it's interesting the approach you've taken with this. So I think it's going to be equally interesting for you having watched it for the first time, and hopefully you enjoy it. And interesting for me because when you get thrown into this show, there's so much. It's such a big open world, this place. There's so many different families. There's so many characters and associations that they're really just throwing at you, even in this first episode. And you got to really catch things as you go and as they go on. And so revisiting it now, I know so much more now going into it. So I think this will be equally fun for me as well as it is for me revisiting it for the first time. I've never rewatched any of these episodes. I've just watched them as they used to come on. This was appointment television type TV type stuff where Sunday HBO, we would always watch Game of Thrones and some other shit on HBO at that time, right? But
this came out April 17th, 2011.
2011. So there you go. So it's 11 years ago. There you go. So yeah, so that's interesting. And the fact that the House of Dragons just ended, we thought this might be the perfect opportunity to kind of try this out. So we'll see how this goes. So we're going to be aiming towards doing these weekly, guys. We're doing this first episode live to see how it goes, but more than likely, I think we're going to re-record the other episodes. We might do live episodes for special ones like the finales of each season if we continue on. Our goal is to kind of watch all the episodes and put these out weekly for you guys, so you'll get an episode a week with us just talking about one episode in the series. doing it that way. And we're also going to be trying to keep it to a smaller length for you guys. So we're going to try to be, I'm sure some of them will vary depending on what happens in the episodes and what we have to say about it. But we're going to be trying aiming these episodes to be anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes usually one. So they're going to be a little bit easier for you guys to digest that way and check out. And hopefully some of you guys will join us on this journey. Whether you're revisiting the show with us or maybe checking it out for the first time like JT, right? So hopefully you guys like these and let us know what you think of this new show. We're just going to try it out and see how it goes. And
should be interesting.
Yeah.
It's pulled me in so far. So,
and also I think it'll be fun to have some people on as guests that were also fans of this show when it came out, that are also have been watching House of the Dragon, that love Game of Thrones. And I know a lot of people that we know that are fans of Game of Thrones, so I don't think we'll have that much difficulty getting some people on here with us. But if you guys have watched this episode and you're interested in joining us on one of these episodes, let us know. And maybe we can get that going. We'll bring some people on and maybe we'll do those episodes live as well when we have a guest on, get some other opinions from fans as we watch these. If there's any specific episodes that are your favorite out there, guys, let us know and maybe you can join us for that specific episode. Because, we got 8 seasons, I think, of this, right? Over 50 episodes or something like that. Or I guess more than that.
I didn't even look to see how many actually episodes there were. I knew it's going to be quite a bit to follow. I didn't know it was 8 to 10 seasons. That's why I thought, right? So somewhere in and along that lines, right? So
I think there's 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 8. There's 8 seasons of Game of Thrones. They split up the last one into 2 seasons, even though they're shorter, and there's 73 episodes. So we'll be doing this well over a year, guys, if we continue on this way. So that's why I think it's just important that we're able to pre-record some. We are most likely going to air those live, so you can always check into them live and maybe chat it up with people in the chat if people do tune in. But yeah, I can't guarantee at this point. I think every episode will be live like this, but definitely tune in and check in with us when we do the live ones. If we do some of those along the way, and hopefully this will be fun. I'm looking forward to talking about this. Hopefully it can keep JT's interest over there.
yeah, hopefully it can keep me watching, right? Like I said, so far it's got me wanting to watch it again, right? So I like I said, I've already gone further than I did the first time around. So maybe it wasn't my cup of tea. I don't know. Maybe it was just something I just didn't want to follow back then. It was just something not for me. So
maybe it's the right time, right? I mean, that's what I mean. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes you revisit shit and you're like, oh, how come I've never liked this before?
Yeah.
This is great, right? Sometimes your taste changes over time too, and what you're into, right? So if you liked House of the Dragon, I have no doubt you're gonna like this show.
Well, I mean, that's what I thought too, right? That's why I figured, you know what? Let's see if we can. I wouldn't mind I wouldn't mind watching it for the first time, right? Because of that whole that I did like the prequel there. So hopefully this we can get a good conversation out of this too. Like it's a little different than we're usually used to when we're getting conversations out of TV shows or movies and stuff like that.
Right.
So this should hopefully
because I know we tried it out already. We tried it out with The Wire. We watched the first season of The Wire and talked about that for a special episode that we did in the summer schedule, late night chat. We reviewed lots of movies here. You could always check in and check out our year-end media reviews, guys, where me and JT talk about our favorite shows every year that we've watched. So there were no strangers talking about shows. But like I said, we're going to try to keep this one moving. We're just going to give you our initial thoughts on the episode and talk about some of the plot that happened each episode as well. And again, I'm going to serve as maybe trying to give a little bit more context to things without spoiling things for JT, because this will be the first time that he's actually watched the show. I have to keep that in mind when we have these conversations too. But but again, there's gonna be some things I don't remember along the way. Some things I'm probably still confused about as well. So it'll be interesting to talk with somebody with fresh new eyes on this thing as well. So, all right. So, Jay, you ready? Get into it.
I'm ready, bro. Let's do it.
Game of Thrones episode 1, Winter is Coming, is the title of this episode. Winter is Coming, and that is like one of the main phrases from Game of Thrones that, even if you weren't a fan of the show, you heard a lot of people saying that. It was on t-shirts. It was branded everywhere. Winter is coming. It's kind of like the theme of the whole show for the most part, as kind of somewhat detailed in this episode in the beginning scene when it opens with people traveling beyond the ice wall. and they talk about some people called wildlings. They talk about the Night Watch, which are the people that are supposed to be guarding this said wall, right?
Okay.
And they talk about White Walkers.
Yeah,
And
I got that part of it. I got the White Walkers part. I didn't hear your the other two that you were saying there. What were the other ones too? The other two that you had just mentioned there?
we talk about the wildlings. They mentioned it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
These things I kind of double checked at what things are mentioned, so I'm not spoiling things for you. So it is mentioned, but they don't really give you context to the wildlings. That we haven't seen any of the wildlings yet, but they are people, I guess, that exist beyond the wall. They're a group of people, and the Night Watch are the people that are tasked with basically protecting like the whole like Winterfell, all that, like protecting that region past the wall, basically, like their world, like everything beyond that ice there. There's not there shouldn't be people living out there, but there is some people living out there, as I just mentioned, which we'll get into later on. But there is things that are like somewhat of a myth called White Walkers, right? And something goes on in that first
Oh, I hear you.
where
I
someone
know.
gets kind of taken away. And I'm sure you've seen some things, Jay, even though you've never watched the show, that you've seen. I know you've collected the alcohol bottles and you've seen things probably on the internet, or, you know what I mean? So there's probably some things you're not a stranger to, but you probably just looked at them and you're like, I don't know what this is, because you had no reference for it previously, right? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, they are referenced in this episode, the White Walkers, but we don't really know too much about them at this point in time. It's more of reference as a myth in this. And later on, you actually meet, when you're learning about all the families, Jay, with the Starks, that their uncle, Benjen, of the kids there, of Ned Stark, his brother, I guess, their uncle, the kid's uncle, that appears later in the episode, he belongs to the Night Watch. And Jon Snow, he talks about wanting to become part of the Night Watch in this episode. And Jon Snow is the bastard child. He's the one that's under he's one of Ned Stark's kids that he took under his wing, but he's not actually one of his kids. He's a bastard.
Took him under his wings. There's a lot of bastards in this fucking episode.
Yeah,
in the series.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of pieces of shit in this show. Period. There's a lot of fucking horrible people, as you can tell in Game of Thrones. You know, just like in let's reference something you know, like what's his name, the king in the House of the Dragon, who kind of just wants the best for his family, wants everybody to get along, everything else, right? The Targaryen king guy who ends up dying there. Spoilers, everybody. By the way, spoilers. There's gonna be spoilers because we gotta talk about the right? So in this show, it's at least at this point in time, Ned Stark is probably the only good person in the bunch. The Starks are like, everyone else is horrible. Let's just say that.
In your relation to the what's it called?
On, Goat? You're just watching us on TikTok. Nice.
Okay. Nice. But no, no relations to the Stark from what the fuck is that? Your Avengers there?
No, Tony Stark. No relation.
I don't know. Who knows? That bloodline might go a long way.
Yeah. But in this first episode, they introduce us to a lot of characters and a lot of the families, and that's kind of the difficult part about getting into this show.
A little too much in the first episode here.
What's that?
A little too much if you don't know what's going on, right? Like, you're just trying to figure out, like, what the fuck is happening here. You got.
So here, let me run down some names for you here, Jay, to help you out here in case you didn't catch them. I know you also took notes, and you'll have to give some your thoughts and stuff too. But let me just set this up here. So they talk about a lot of things. First off, they introduce you to the Starks and the Starks' home and their region, which is Winterfell. Then he introduce you to the guy Sean Bean plays, the actor Sean Bean. He plays Ned Stark, or Eddard Stark. Okay. And then they introduce you to the dire wolves, the wolves, and think of those guys as like essentially like they become like the dragons to the Starks.
Yeah, like, that's what I kind of figured. I got the gist of that in a sense, right?
Yeah.
When they got introduced to the,
like don't get me wrong, they're not dragons. But like, you know, they take they obviously find all these wolves that are rare, and then they're going to become part of their family because they divided them amongst all the children, right? So
all the pups, yeah.
They introduce you to Jon Snow, the bastard, right? And then you get introduced to the rest of his kids in this as well, right? You get he has 2 daughters and a son. he basically, let's look at here. So even me, I'm looking at all my notes right here.
Yeah.
Sansa, and then you got Rob. Or sorry, and then you got Brent. Yeah, so you got two sons, and then you got Arya.
Okay.
And yeah, so he's got two daughters, two sons, and then Jon Snow, the bastard son. So he's got a young son and a young daughter. That's Arya, this young daughter, and Brant, that's the other young son. And then you got the older son, Rob Stark, and then you got Sansa, who's kind of like she's not as old as Rob, but older than the other two. Like she's more of a teenager right now.
Yeah, this is the first. These are the ones that got the wolves, right?
Yes, these are all the Starks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are all the Starks family that you get introduced.
It's just keeping. Like I know, getting the names. I'll have the names down by the first few episodes, but getting the names is the fun part.
Of course, that's what I mean. Like I'm kind of just trying to help out in the sense that I've seen. Trying to set it up for a little bit more for you because they do introduce you to a lot of people in this first episode, right? So, and then you get introduced to the Lannisters. Now, Lannisters were actually referenced in House of the Dragon. Jay, there was somebody that wanted to take the Targaryens wanted to get her hand in marriage at one point in that show that was introduced as one of the Lannisters, obviously an early descendant of the Lannisters, but they were referenced as well as the Starks towards the end of the season, as well as the Baratheons. Now, the Baratheons here, Robert Baratheon is the king right now on the show, and he's married to Cersei Lannister. So the Lannisters and the Baratheons now are essentially in blood now on the throne, but Robert Baratheon, who is the family that they went to at the end of House of the Dragon, who kind of like cast them away, and that's when they got into that whole fight with the dragons, Jay, at the end of the House of the Dragon. Mm-hmm. He's the king right now of the realm. Of all their world right now, he's the king of the realm, and Cersei, who is a Lannister, is married to him, and Cersei's brother is Jaime. So Jaime and Cersei Lannister are part of the Lannister family. The Lannister family, being very rich and they're married now into the kingship right now. Essentially, she's the queen, Cersei, right now of the realm. Robert Baratheon's king. And then we have a son, Joffrey.
Okay, I'm just looking at they're trying to see their faces so I can put the pictures to the names, right? That's what I'm looking at. I mean, obviously the pictures don't help because they don't look like the way they probably look a little older on their IMDb right now than they did when they were doing this show.
So Joffrey is like the young prince who Sansa is kind of in love with. Like he comes to meet up with the king because Robert Baratheon's good friends with Ned Stark.
Okay.
So he comes and meets with him in this episode because he says that he needs his help. And there's maybe some there's some people trying to snatch the throne right now. Like there's some sneakiness going on right now where they're trying to take him out. And they, and as they do in this show, as you could tell already from watching, even the House of the Dragon, there's a lot of people that want to be on top, right? They want to be king. There's enemies that they have. So yeah, so he comes to the Starks in Winterfell from King's Landing, because King's Landing, as we know, is where the king and queen stay. Right, it's like the center of the capital, essentially, of the realm, and that's where the House of the Dragon. That's where they are in that show as well, is King's Landing. They travel to Winterfell, which is essentially like the winter area. Like it's the one that's hit with colds, right? They live in a winter wonderland of sorts. The weather over there is always like that, right? So. So that's kind of where they visited the Starks in this episode. Robert Baratheon, who's the king, he goes to him and comes to him as a friend, right, and asks for his aid, essentially, right?
Well, he's coming to tell him that the king has died, right?
That he's now the king.
Yeah, he's now the king.
Yeah, and he can do things for him, and he thinks that he's an asset, right?
Yeah.
And then you got Tyrion Lannister, who's the short guy, the guy who's a little person.
The little guy.
Yeah. And he's one of my favorite characters, Tyrion. And, and then he
used to be pretty cool so far.
Awesome. He's awesome. He's a drunken whore, essentially. He has money. He knows it. He belongs to a wealthy family, and he's obviously got attributes that aren't going to do him any favors during this time, right? And so he kind of just is a guy that hangs out in the whorehouses and gets hammered. That's who he's introduced to us as. And honestly, in the first scene.
Yeah, man. I know. And then his brother comes and throws him a few more just to keep
Yeah.
him,
Trust
occupied.
you're gonna like that character, bro. That's one of my favorite characters is Tyrion. He's the best. And then Jamie is his brother, and he's also related to Cersei in that sense.
Didn't
Jamie,
they say they were twins or something? Or
yeah, Jamie and Cersei are. So
yeah. It's just
we'll get into that. So again, you're no stranger to that stuff on Game of Thrones already. There's a lot of people banging their family back then, guys.
it wasn't many people to bang. It doesn't look like back then, bro. You didn't have many choices.
So Jamie is kind of like he's a knight, and he's the brother to Tyrion and brother to Cersei as well. They're twins, like you pointed out. And then you got the Dragon Queen, Daenerys Targaryen. Okay, she is essentially Queen of the Dragons. She is the newest in it. Like basically, if you're gonna watch House of the Dragon, your main basis on watching that show would have been following the Targaryens in this season, in this show, Game of Thrones, would have been through Daenerys's eyes. So Daenerys is the representative of the Targaryens in this show, and you get introduced to her. And I hope you like seeing her naked, Jay, because that doesn't last. So just know that. Spoilers. I'm going to let you know right now.
What, you only get that first glimpse?
Soak it all in this season, brother, because once she gets too famous, she's like, I'm not taking my clothes off anymore on this show.
She just said, okay, I'm going to take my clothes off. Lets her brother touch him. And lets her brother touch her.
No, that's Cersei that you're thinking of. I'm talking about Daenerys Targaryen now. She's the one that goes with the Dothraki, the barbarian characters, who is played by Jason Momoa in this season.
That one. That was funny. That kind of threw me off. I was like, oh, here we go. Now that was a party. Sorry.
Right. So you'll already be familiar with, again, her family because of House of the Dragon. So you see the dragon egg in this episode and you hear about the Targaryens, and she's got her brother there who's a piece of shit that sells her off to these other people called the Dothraki. Now, something interesting that I picked up on, and this is why I liked revisiting these shows. This is what I was hoping for, Jay. When they were talking Dothraki in this, like the people are speaking Dothraki, Jason Momoa and his people, right? I thought that they were speaking Dothraki for some reason in House of the Dragon. And then I had to look it up, and I was like, why are they always with the Dothraki stuff? And apparently, when like the sister and the uncle, sorry, not the sister, the niece and the uncle in House of the Dragon that ended up with each other on the show, you know why they're talking that weird language all the time? Apparently, that's High Valyrian, which I didn't pick up on by watching that. High Valyrian, it must be some sort of dialect of the Valyrians that were part of that show, House of the Dragon, right? And they haven't been shown yet on this first episode, but they're also part of this. They're referenced in this world still at this point in time, right? So
the people I'm getting used to the families right now because they're a little different than what I'm seeing in House of Dragons in a sense. You're not seeing everybody yet in House of Dragons yet.
Right.
So I don't know how many of them you'll see. Right. I mean, obviously, you haven't even seen Winter or anything. So
right.
They haven't gone, like you said, that far north in the House of Dragons or whatever it is. So
right. So yeah, in this episode, you're introduced to Daenerys, and you also get to see her at her Dothraki wedding as her brother sells her off to the Dothraki people that are like, some barbarian type folks, right? Who like obviously
some crazy shit.
They don't treat their women like in any respectable fashion, right? Her brother just cares about aligning himself with these guys as warriors that will defend, help them, right? Exactly. Yeah. So he's like, I don't care if you fucking get raped by these guys, I'm just gonna hand you over to them, which is crazy, like right from the get-go. And she seems very weak and helpless at this point in time, right? I gotta say. So I don't want to foreshadow nothing, Jay, but she's an important character as the show goes on, right? She's like I said, she's the Daenerys of this show, essentially, that you see here. And the reason why House of the Dragon is so popular probably is because of the stuff from this show again, right? So
yeah, that's what I mean. I'd like to see where this goes, because obviously, like I said, I know where it comes from, where this origin now slowly coming from, but whereas all these other people take place, like, I mean, I'm still yet to see any dragons, so
right.
We don't know, right?
But you saw a dragon egg in this episode.
Yeah, so I know that there's a tease, right, of it. So
so then there's also the guy Jason Momoa's character's name is Khal Drogo. Okay, he's from the Dothraki, and then you also get introduced to Jorah Mormont. which is he's the guy that introduces himself to Daenerys and says that he knows her family and knows of them. He's the guy that kind of introduces himself at the wedding. He's just kind of like a dude that looks like a knight. Also a character, I think that, as the series goes on, you'll see his story kind of, so like all the kind of, a lot of the main players are being set up in this first episode, but what happens to a lot of these people, we won't get into here, obviously, because this is only the first episode. I don't want to spoil nothing for you, Jay, but like there is a lot of main players, let's say, that they're introducing to you in this first one for sure. And then basically after introducing you to all these people, seeing the Starks, seeing the Lannisters converse with the Starks, seeing the Dothraki wedding stuff, the episode ends on quite a cliffhanger.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like it ends in like a fucking orgy, bro.
Brent, the youngest son of Ned Stark, who's known to climb things and likes to venture, and through his home and other places. He's adventurous. He's a kid.
He looked like he was having a lot of fun, man. He was climbing
right?
pretty good, man. That was interesting.
He climbs up on top of a building.
Yeah.
Peeks inside a window and catches Jaime and Cersei Lannister having sex with one another, brother and sister. And then Jaime sees him and he's like, all the things you do in the name of love, and he pushes the kid out the window, and it's a high window.
Yeah. Yeah, like I mean, you've seen him fall. Like it's showing you that point of view, right? Right, go, yeah.
And that's how the episode ends. It leaves on that big cliffhanger.
I wrote, "What the fuck?" right at that part. I got to that. I said, "What the fuck?" Right, it just stopped.
But go ahead, Jay. Any questions that you have so far in terms of what was set up in this episode? Any notes that you had about anything that you thoughts on these things?
Well, I seen like there's certain parts here that I found interesting too, like when what's his name, the little guy. The fuck's his name now? The midget. Sorry.
Tyrion.
I don't want to say it. They're saying midget. They're saying a lot worse in the show, right?
Yeah, so they are. I mean,
yeah. So I gotta refer to them as whatever they do in the show. So I can't really get in trouble. So I'll make sure, right? But I mean, he refers to Stark's son as the bastard, right? And he stole him to wear with pride, right?
Yes.
Because I mean, it seems like it's pointing out a sort of weird dynamic between the two of them, only because they both have sort of they kind of fall out of what's that word that I'm looking for? It falls out of
favor.
Well, favor, yeah, would that be the word that I'm looking for? Favor, like it falls out.
Are you trying to say he might be the outcast of the family?
Well, he is. Yeah, he is like I would say he's the outcast because
you're right. Because of his affliction, he is not looked upon.
As the same way.
That's good that you got that already from that comment. Yes, that's absolutely the way that he looks at it. Now, Tyrion gets most along with his brother Jaime, who's the guy that went and seen him in the whorehouse and makes a comment and chats with them. Like
and throws him the whores, right?
Because he feels. I mean, again, I don't want to spoil too much. He has a sympathy for him. Like he loves his brother, right? Yeah. Also.
That's what I got that from that part. Like I figured, there's a weird relationship with them too, even though they're two totally different. One's gonna be
what's going on, man.
Yeah, one's gonna be way out there. Like he's gonna be the one brother, the better looking one, that not so vertically challenged one.
Yes.
Yeah, he's gonna get the the better women, the better chances back then and stuff like that. I'm surprised they never he's probably lucky that because he was part of a big family, that he didn't get killed off as a little person back then, right?
Well, I mean that's why he spends his time in whorehouses and not right. He's not built for that.
Yeah, well, apparently he's built for the horse.
She was, the Daenerys was in Terminator Genesis, and she was terrible in it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even watch. Everyone watches that Terminator.
Yeah, Terminator Genesis. The girl who plays Daenerys was in it, and she's very bad in it. In my opinion, she's terrible at it. But anyways, but yeah, a couple other names here that I had written down that I guess I didn't go over was Viserys Targaryen is Daenerys' brother. That's the piece of shit guy who gave her up. And like I mentioned earlier, Benjen Stark is his uncle that is with the Night's Watch, and as you saw in this episode, Ned Stark cut the head off of somebody that basically
weird about.
Well, he like came back. He's not once you're part of the Night Watch, you're not allowed to be like your outcast from society. Like your role is to basically like
be out there.
Right. And this guy went out there and he came back, I guess, to warn them about whatever went happen out there. And that's because that's when they started talking about the myth of the White Walker stuff.
Well, that's where I'm going. Okay, where is like I've like I said, I've seen the House. I've been watching the House of Dragons, right? So, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, the worst it's gonna get is a little bit of incest, and you know what I mean, this and that, right? Or that kind of stuff. But then you got now all of a sudden what looked like fucking what threw me off. They were like fucking dead. They didn't even look human, right? When they came up and and those guys out of the ground when he was all. What's that goofy looking guy's face? The guy from the one that got his head taken off. That talked. They because he came back and they had to behead him because he was talking about what he had seen out there and how it grabbed his buddy and like what the hell were those things? They looked like trees. They were coming from the trees, like you know what I mean. I know they look like fucking weird tree people and fucking.
Moving forward, that's going to be a
little glimpse.
That's going to be a big aspect of this show, essentially, and hence the winter is coming line. That's the name of this episode, and so yeah, I'll just say that much. I can't say much right now, but it's going to be a theme, I think, throughout the series. What they're setting up right from the get-go here, really. So like you'll see, Jay, that some of the best stuff comes out of this for the show in general. So I don't want to spoil anything for you, but yeah, there's something going on out there for sure.
See, I'm not getting right now how the Targaryens too are looked upon right now, if they are looked upon as a bad people, like because they didn't seem like they were looked upon like that. Maybe so much before the king died in the House of Dragons, but
you got to remember that was when they were on the throne at that time. Now they're
that was 100. They're saying it's 173 years ago. I'm trying to put into perspective that it is taking place quite almost 200 years past before, right?
Now the only character we got introduced to is getting thrown to these fucking barbarians and like as a sex toy.
Yeah,
there you go, fucking
right. That's what I mean, and I'm going. What the fuck is going on here for a second? Like, because you only see them closer to they only really introduced really near the closer to the end of the episode. Like in the beginning of the episode, I didn't even see the little blonde kids, like, children of the corn, I like to call them.
It's interesting too, Jay, because you got to think of it from the perspective that Jason Momoa wasn't as big. He wasn't Aquaman at that time, right?
That's what killed me about him. Wasn't 100%.
He's half the size here. He's not even as big here. Like,
but he's still huge.
He's huge, but he's like half the size that he is now in this show. Like it's like 11 years ago. Like he's like compared.
He looks like he was having fun, bro.
Well, he's not as big as popular at this time, though. That's what you got to understand. This is one of the main reasons why he became famous is because of this show, his portrayal as this guy, right? In this show.
So that they put him as a tribal guy in this one, and all of a sudden,
as much as he's basically like raping her, like he's like forcing himself on her, like women love this fucking guy. No, it's true. I mean, like.
He said it straight up. They bend their over, like they don't even care about what they look like.
Show it, but there's some graphic shit in this show.
I can tell.
Graphic shit in this show. You haven't seen nothing yet.
Well,
the dragon was tame compared to this show. I'm telling you. Like,
well, I don't know. Even the House of the Dragon scene, the first opening scene was pretty fucking.
I think House of the Dragon might get worse, but this is crazy. This shows some of the shit that happens.
Well, yeah, I would think it'd have to get worse too, just to keep the trend going of it. Like, right? I mean, but
yeah, there you go. You get introduced to the Lannisters, you get introduced to the Starks, you get introduced to the Targaryens, and some other players, some other people like family of theirs and people that are kind of like in the mix essentially right now in this episode, right?
Well, it's kind of funny. I caught on to the green dress too, in the green of the
yes.
Yeah. Like there's a green dress. And it's one of the queens wears it in the tiger in House of Dragons too, right? And she brought back, like she says, it's a specific dress, that color for the Oh fuck, but I can't really remember what it was for at that point when they mentioned it in the House of the Dragons, right? So I see what the colors, how they're kind of maybe um trying to portray something with the that dress too, because I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, in the house, and I could be wrong. Just because they get me, now it's gonna probably get me. I gotta
Looking back,
make sure.
yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna get me looking back, right?
Right.
So it's kind of right. But um, they had mentioned something in the House of Dragons about when the Targaryen's wife, the queen at the time, with the red hair, came with the green dress, and it meant to say it was a symbol of, I don't know, it was like in a sense of a war of some type, like bringing, like, that they were gonna get angry with something because
Yeah.
she didn't agree with something. She walked in the middle and she had that green dress and everybody had gone quiet. So
Okay.
I'm wondering if this has gotten, and I'm going to keep my eye on it throughout
Mhm.
this season, right, and just see where it plays and see how it plays into it,
Yeah.
because I have a feeling there's something to do with that too, right? Because I'm still, like I said, I'm trying to
No, that's
decipher
cool.
the characters, right? Because there's a lot of differences between
Right.
what's
Absolutely.
happening now, right?
Absolutely, because it was so many years before, and like if you're going to be quicker to notice some of those things than I will, because the House of the Dragons is still more fresh in your mind, I think, as being your first exposure to this. Me revisiting this, I'll just probably be focusing on stuff that I recall from it and not really relating so much to stuff the House of the Dragons in that sense, right? So like that's why it's kind of interesting that we're doing it this way. So I think, it's going to be a lot of fun getting into the weeds a little bit about some of these things, not even just comparing it to that show, but also like,
That's how I'm going to try to compare how I'm because I'm already, we're already, like, you've seen it too, right? The new season two as well,
of
right?
course, yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, you're gonna try to notice those differences too, right? When
sure.
you're paying attention and like, oh
Oh yeah,
fuck,
no,
okay,
I
that's where they're going with. But
I
you
am.
might be a critic too, in a sense. Like, did they do it the right way? Because there is people talking about that too, right?
Right. Well, so far, there's a lot of people that I will say this. I did enjoy House of the Dragon, but I think that it has a lot riding on it, and people have been somewhat, I think, unfair in their criticism of that show because they love Game of Thrones so much, and Game of Thrones was so good for so long. I feel like they're putting a lot of pressure on the fact that this being a spinoff, they want it to be as good as they remember Game of Thrones being. But for a lot of people, Game of Thrones shit the bed at the end of their show too. Now I know you already know this, Jay. You've heard us talk about this. We were doing late night chat at that time when we
Mm-hmm.
talked about it, and everything went over your head at that time because you didn't watch the show, right? So it'll be interesting once we actually do get to that point a year from now and we get to talk about that. And that's why, guys, by that point in time, if we enjoy doing this show and we actually make it to that point, we might even start watching House of the Dragon again from season one, because by that time it should be probably into season two. So, it might be interesting to kind of then revisit that after we've watched this, right? So, but,
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what happens, right? The sky's the limit in terms of this Game of Thrones shit if they keep putting out other shows. I think they could do shows for all these families, quite frankly. I don't know if that's the plan or not, but like I think there's on the strength of this show and maybe some of the outlines in history that the writer had written on a lot of these people. Also, Jay, the interesting thing about that is the writer of these books has still not completed the series. We've already had the show end, and the writer of the books has not finished the books.
No, eh?
So that's what a lot of fans are upset about too, is because like he really hasn't, like, who knows what else he can really add in at this point that maybe wasn't featured on the show, because they were going off of what the writer had to say that they were basing the finale of that show on, but like it was disappointing for a lot of folks, right? So for them to turn around and you know what I mean, like expect something from this guy, the possibility of him finishing the book, and instead they're fucking doing spin-off shows, right? I understand why there's people upset at that, right? Like I'm like, come on now, like you gotta finish the book, man. Like, apparently House of Dragons is based only on one book in the series as well.
Really, eh?
Yeah, apparently there's one book in the series that references all this shit that happens on the House of the Dragon show so far.
Oh, I don't know.
That's
I
what I've
have to.
heard.
I didn't even like. I
I've
wouldn't
never read
even
the
have
books. I haven't
looked
read the
towards
books
the
either.
books. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never read the books either. But anyways, anything else, Jay, though? And
What's with the googly eye guy? The googly eyes and the fucking they put the rocks on his fucking eyes. Remember with the fucking thing when he's dead, the dead body. Uh, I don't know. Some of the shit that I see that goes on in this, Like it's like, I know it's not real life. Obviously, this is it's all, what do you call it, fiction, right? But it's kind of funny the way they set things up. You know what I noticed? Two little things, bro. I don't know how much this is a big deal or anything. I was wondering because they were using. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, in the House of Dragons they're using falcons to deliver shit like the notes, but in this one they're using ravens, which I thought was a little weird, a little different. I don't know if it's that just the area of where they're at,
Right.
right? Um, but it's like even little things like you forget about how long ago they're trying to depict that this takes place, right? And people dying of fevers, like what's his name there? Was it Herring? Uh, was it John? John Herring, I think it was the one. I think it was the who's the one that died of the fever? He just was sick. Remember? Was that the king at the beginning of this one? That they came over and said why? What happened?
Oh, I don't recall.
Yeah, because it's somebody had died it quickly, and they had died in the episode, and they had to talk about it
Yeah,
quickly,
that could
right?
very much be it. Yeah, but I mean, like that's that is
I can't
definitely
find it on here, right?
modern medicine wasn't what it was clearly at
No.
that time, right? Like there's some shit that they're doing at this time, which is pretty hardcore, right? In terms of
Yeah.
pain and everything else, right? As we saw, even what they were doing to the dying king and House of the Dragon was pretty crazy and
Yeah,
extreme.
John Aaron, that's who it is. That's the one I
Okay.
think I'm talking about, right?
Okay.
But yeah, he had died,
Right.
but I think he's dead now in real life just by the picture. Yeah, that he has on his fucking IMDb now.
Right.
But yeah, yeah. So there was that. There's the little things. I like how that. What's his name? Uh, the bastard's was it the bastard's son got the runt, right? Or
Sorry.
was it the other one? The bastard's son got the runt too of the
Yeah,
wolves.
the litter. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
Jon Snow because there was only enough, of the regular dire wolves for the rest of them. And then after they were walking away, and they're like, "You didn't get one," they found another one kind of up to the side,
So
right?
was it the White Walkers that they're saying that have been gone for thousands? Like you said, was it that you said thousands of years?
So
Like
the White
they haven't
Walkers,
been heard
yeah,
from. They haven't heard from yet. Like
myth.
it's a.
It's apparently
It doesn't look like a myth, bro. There was somebody that came out of the ground there, unless the guy was tripping out because he was fucking cold or something.
we'll
Who
see.
knows, right?
We'll see. But the people that live beyond the wall, though, the people that are out there
Mm-hmm.
are the wildlings. That's what I'll tell you. They were mentioned in this, but we haven't seen them yet. And that they're people that live beyond the wall. Where people don't essentially live. These people live out there. And the only time that people go beyond the wall is if they're like outcasted out from the realm, essentially, or they live out there for whatever reason, which again, other than those people, no one does, because you can't survive out there, or you're traveling, like you need some
You
sort of a
need to
quick
pass through.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need some sort of, but remember, you're going over a sheet of fucking ice out there, right? Like it's like past that ice wall, it's like, it's dangerous out there, and not only just because
It's a
of the
new world.
temperatures. Exactly. So that is, again, it is a theme
Well,
you're going to learn more about as the show goes on. Like this is, you really just get the intro of this episode, and then you don't really talk about it much after that. You get reference to the Night Watchmen. You don't really know their importance at this time. And you get the tease that Jon Snow wants to become part of them, and their uncle is part of the Night Watch and everything else, right? So you're gonna, as things develop, you're gonna get more into that stuff, Jace. But so it's really it goes in different directions from here. You're gonna get that stuff that's going on behind the wall, and you're gonna get stuff that's going on in King's Landing, for people battling for the throne, hence the Game of Thrones. There's a lot of people at each other's necks, and a lot of families beefing with each other and everything else, right? So that's essentially the show, right? As far as
yeah. No, I know. And then, like, I mean, you had basically gave a rundown, anyways. I'm just going through like how I now and you're towards the end of the episode. But I mean, I want to see I want to see if he ends up going. Stark ends. I guess I take it he ends up going to help to be the right hand to the king, anyways, right? Because remember he had Cape to travel over to ask him to come over, and
he's agreed to help Robert Baratheon right now. Yeah, he under protest. I mean, the wife's not happy about it. He's kind of done enough for him over the last several years in terms of the war efforts. He says as much, but he's like, "Listen, I need you. I don't trust nobody." And if you're gonna trust anybody, Ned Stark's a stand-up dude.
He's a stand-up dude, eh?
He is. Ned Stark's fucking good old Sean Bean.
Good
Also
old
Lord
Sean
of the
Bean.
Rings and so many other movies.
He's been in a lot of these weird ones. I know he's a British, like a British actor, right?
He's been in lots of stuff you've seen.
Or
I'm
English
sure.
actor. Is it British actor, if I'm not
I
mistaken?
think so. Yeah, I think he's English. Yeah, I think that's
You
right.
know, I mean, I wouldn't put this past English back then, right? I mean, this seems like their kind of lifestyle. Like, so
Yeah,
I wouldn't know how much is based on real life and how much is based on
right.
fiction, right? So I I'm start. I mean, I think it's interesting, and that last scene there kept me. It made me want to just watch the next episode. I didn't take
Yeah,
a chance to watch it yesterday, right? Because it was late after the whole podcast, and then I ended up talking to Max for a little while, so I didn't end up getting into this. But I know I'm going to end up watching at least another episode tonight. But yeah, no, it's kind of interesting to see where it's going to go because, I mean, I know I'm only excuse me, I know I'm only in the first episode, and I'm getting their names down right. I'm trying to put the names to the characters so I won't really have to use the notes as much
right.
in a sense because I can just watch the episode and come and talk about it because it'll be a lot
It's a
easier. But
lot. It's a
yeah,
lot right now, though. Trust me. I think it's gonna feel that way for the first season. At least that's how I felt the first time watching the show. And then from there, you kind of get a better grip on things. And thankfully, because that's when the show goes in so many different directions with different characters, and then in each of their journeys, you meet other characters. So
mhm.
that's the world opens up even more past the first season. So
Mhm.
I'll tell you that much. So like all the people that you're going to be focused on in this season, there's a lot of them that you're going to be following them past the first season as they go on their separate journeys.
Okay. Yeah, no, I that's what and I could see myself going back and forth in my head trying to
Right.
figure stuff out, right? But yeah, it's got me. I figured out a couple of them. So I've at least the one so far. The one, uh, the family. Well, there's two I think that are they've mentioned already in this one that are in from previous, right? Or
Yeah.
sorry, from the new show. So, um, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they progress and then where that comes or how they fall or like I like right now they don't look so bad in 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 the House of Dragons, but I mean from where this is taking place, they don't look so great either right now. So
Right.
I don't know. I mean, you kind of figured that with
Yeah.
the brother, yeah.
I haven't seen nothing yet, man. It's just going to be
No,
an
I know.
journey. This is going to be an interesting journey, folks. But, anyways, no, with that being said, we should wrap it up, though. I think,
Yeah.
like I said, guys, I know you got more to say, but we got to move on to episode 2, Jay. Episode 2 is going to be, we're going to be doing these weekly, guys. And, I'm going to try to find out a day that these will drop consistently for you guys. Like I mentioned, I don't know if all of them are going to be, they're going to air live, but I don't know if all of them are going to be live in the sense that we're going to have the active chat open for you guys to talk to us, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Like I said, I definitely would be open to it and we might do other live episodes, but we got a lot to get through and we're trying to keep these shows a little shorter for you guys to kind of hopefully get you guys to kind of join us while we talk, as we do, go through this show. Right. So, I know, really, right? Wait till tomorrow. I'm gonna get you to do some more. Gonna try to convince you to do some more.
Yeah. The heck. Right?
Yeah, even though you're producing essentially 3 other shows that are in the works, right?
Fuck, man.
We'll
But
talk
no,
more tomorrow at the HR meeting, Julie.
we maybe we'll get her to come on one of these ones. I don't know if she's ever watched the show, but we'll see.
We'll find out.
We know we need to get the one that never was recorded. That's the one we need to get on here.
Oh, the lost episode of Late Night Chat. It wasn't
the last.
We need to get her back for sure, I think, for
Yeah,
one of these.
she's good. I'm pretty sure if we talk to her, she'll agree to, and but we just got to make sure that we don't fuck it up this time on her.
I have some guests in mind. Now we got StreamYard recording it for us, so thankfully, shout out to StreamYard. We don't screw it up.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Join us on this journey, then, Julie. Come on now,
Julie. It could be. You don't have to be the only virgin. I am. Don't worry, too, for this show.
Yeah, Jay's not the only one that's never seen this. There you go. Maybe you should join us, Julie. It's
you might like Mr. Momoa there.
But yeah, we'll be doing these weekly. So, all right, everybody. So episode 2, we're gonna be talking about next week. That's called The King's Road. That's episode 2. Episode 2 of season 1 of Game of Thrones, and it's called The King's Road.
Hey, if Nico can make time,
That's right.
anybody can make time.
1 episode a week, Julie. Come on now. You think you can fit that into your schedule?
She's gonna have to ask their better half to pencil her in that scheduling.
Yeah, exactly. There's an episode of the audio podcast before we started doing the video show, and before the first, video show of Late Night Chat, that we had Christina Lewis's wife on as a guest to talk about the finale of the original Game of Thrones show that ended a few years ago when we first started Late Night Chat. Now, I lost the original audio to that episode, and we had to bring her back to record another installment of that episode to put out of the audio podcast, because this was before the video. That is the lost episode of Late Night Chat for anyone that didn't know. Yes, that is the only show that we've lost to the to whatever cyberspace or whatever.
It's not even in the cloud, man. Fuck, it's just gone, man.
Yeah, the audio is like
gone.
That moment is only in our heads.
Yeah, exactly. I think wasn't her better half? Wasn't that the one that actually was our first guest on the video?
That's right.
Yeah, and she seemed to be one of our first guests when it came to the audio too, right? It's kind of weird, and I think we won't tell her how much Lewis paid us to get rid of that audio so that he could be the first one, but we'll have to discuss that later on.
That'll be another secret we'll keep to ourselves for another day, guys. All right, maybe when she comes on as a guest.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, everybody. So that's it for this episode. Remember, we're going to try to be keeping these a little bit shorter than what you're used to. We're going to be talking about these episodes weekly from episode 1 onwards, and join us on this journey of Game of the Thrones, a rewatch for me, a first-time experience for Jay.
Taking my virginity.
We'll see you guys next week. Later, guys.
Peace out.